We are live here. Oh my goodness, this talk show's we're not going. We're going, right? We're live. We're live. We're going. This talk show's on the go, and I'm really on the go today. I'm really on the go today because I am so happy that LASC, LA School of Comedy, is now here for 21 years. 21 years, and since it opened, there's only been one person that ever taught, and that was the owner. And now we have something new is coming to town. And I'm really excited about the Film Actors Cafe with Aaron McIntyre.
Yes, hello.
Our new teacher. Act excited because I'm here.
I'm excited.
Come on, tell them about
excited.
how different acting is now. You know what it's all about now? Everyone's afraid of acting. Everyone's afraid to get their audition. They get nervous, they get tense. And you taught me something. When you're not working and you're not acting, where should you be?
Class. You got to keep training because basically you have to know everything there is to know about human life in order to have learned it all, right? So if you're not working, you've got to keep the tools sharp, and so that's what I always recommend to people. A lot of times people will call up and say, "Oh, how many acting classes do I need to take before I can be an actor?" And it's like, well, as soon as you say you're an actor, you're an actor. It just depends on how good of an actor you are. And
how did you know you were an actor? When did you find that moment?
Oh, my God. When I was 9 years old, I was put into a play at school. I played the Artful Dodger. So I played, like a nice London guy. And I was just hooked. I was hooked on it. And
you got bit by the bug.
I did. And I never really thought about making a living. I never thought that it was possible, right? Because so many people feel that way. Until I graduated from high school and I went and auditioned for a children's theater program that would go around to different parks. And we'd do 2 separate plays during the summer. And we'd drive out to the park, we'd take out the set, we'd do the show, pack it up, go someplace else, take the set out, do another show, and it was 2 shows a day, and that was my first professional acting job, and I thought, I might be able to do this.
Who was the teacher that gave you your impetus and your drive and made you say, hey, you know what, not only am I an actor, I can also teach, I can coach, I can do all this?
Well, I took at the Gene Shelton Acting School up in San Francisco, which was, there's ACT, which is the American Conservatory Theater, and then there was Gene Shelton Acting School, and those were the 2 main schools in San Francisco at the time. So I started taking classes there. I taught for 3 years, and at the end of the 3 years, she came and asked me if I wanted to come and teach the beginning classes.
Really?
So I started then in 1986. So
no strings attached, just teach.
Just teach, and they would pay me money, which was always
and that's
good.
Great.
Yeah.
And you made it very clear from many interviews. When people say, "Well, my kid really has the bug and wants to try it. I mean, she's so funny, they want to try it." And you said, "I want actors."
Right.
I don't want mom wants to get her nails done and go to the mall and I'm babysitting.
Right. Exactly.
How can we be more specific when dealing with the parents of these young adults that we're serious about this, and you've got to be on time to pick them up, because sometimes, to their defense, their mothers are just that way and they really do want to do it.
Yeah. I've never really had too much of a problem with that at this point.
Welcome to Beverly Hills.
Yeah, but I'm sure it's going to be different with traffic and everything. I think that really just finding out. I think that you can find out in 8 weeks, which is usually what, the block of time I give. Within 8 weeks, if the kids are still really interested in doing it, then they're going to continue. In terms of, the people who want to drop their kids off and their kids are not really interested in it, I've learned how to handle that.
Oh, I bet
within the class. So, as long as people know that this is a professional acting school, our goal is to teach people how to be the best actor that they possibly can. And the little bit of a difference in the classes that I teach is that I give more information. I give information about what it's like to be on a set, what to expect, what are the different positions on a film set, so that you kind of know how the film is made.
Yeah, some people don't know.
Right.
I
because most places just teach you how to act.
Right.
And then I just remember my first job, which was in 1988. And the first time I ever walked on a set, it was so unbelievably intimidating because I had no idea. I knew a lot about theater. I'd done lots and lots of theater.
But
it's a completely different. Yeah, it's a completely different process. And so, you have to know what's expected of you. A lot of times people think, oh, I just go in front of the camera and they just roll and I do the scene and then I'm done. It's like, no, you're doing that scene many, many times because they've got to get each camera angle. They've got to do them individually, usually, unless it's a studio production with 3 or 4 cameras. You're going to be moving the camera every time you change that camera
my God.
angle. And it takes a long time. And so a lot of times
How do you do this by yourself? How do you do it by yourself? How?
I don't know. I'm amazing. No,
really, it's such a different world. And we've been discussing this. They had an article in Casting Frontiers, so many A-listers are having problems being cast because they want them to submit a self-tape.
Right.
And you would think at this point, hey, if you know me, it should be good enough, but it's cumbersome.
Yeah.
And Aeron, how do we get adults over that point? Because your young adults don't have the problem.
Right.
It's the adults.
Right.
What's your suggestion?
There's really simple. A lot of people since the pandemic happened have a really hard time with the self tapes. They really want to be in the room. I understand that. Personally, I like doing the self tapes, and the reason is because that's the medium you're going to be working with is film. The second thing is when you go to an in-person audition, you got to drive all the way there. You got to look for parking. You got to pay for parking to walk in, wait for a half an hour to 45 minutes because they're always behind.
Always.
Do the 2 or 3 minutes, then walk out, get back in your car, and drive home. For a self-tape, it can be 1 o'clock in the morning, and I go, well, I'll just set up the camera and do my audition and send it in, and you're done. It's really pretty simple. So, to get a really compact, simple setup to where you basically pull the tripod out, put it there, turn the lights on, get a backdrop that you can put behind you, and then just turn on I make it with my iPhone.
Wow.
They're pretty simple.
And you can be that clear?
Oh yeah, no, the new, especially the new iPhones, man.
Are we really talking about iPhones this way?
Yes, we are.
He's like the new iPhones.
So yeah,
I want to throw it out here to the audience. I might have missed something, especially in the marketing world. What do you think that people are looking for in an acting class besides acting?
I believe they're looking for someone that they can trust. That's usually the one that I see the most.
They can't really hear you, so I'm going to repeat what I asked.
Yeah.
I just wanted to drag you in on this and say it just one more time for me.
I feel like the first thing they look for is trust.
Trust.
Yeah.
That's great. So that's the first thing that people are looking for in acting is trust. To be able to trust your mentor, your coach, and to feel safe and open up.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's so many teachers out here and there's so many con artists and stuff like that where to the point where, especially with kids, I remember when I was younger and my mom, she was our manager at the time, and she was really diligent on making sure that the teachers that we had around us wasn't doing anything
too legit
or anything like
right.
that.
Make sure.
So trust is one of the major factors in finding a good teacher. That's like number one.
That's number one.
Yeah.
And look at this face. This is how could you not trust this? And it's his own nose. It wasn't fixed.
No, not yet. I'm on my way. Yeah, and I think
and
that
thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think the fact that I've got 35 years behind me, I've got 10 years of teaching. Most of those 35 years were teaching adults, which I still do. But I just started about 10 years ago working with younger adults, young adults.
How do you keep them off the phone?
Oh, that is the hardest thing.
Whoa.
Well, babe, the other thing is that I think that especially for kids, you need to make it that they want to be in the class. And so if they're sitting there on their phone, that means they don't want to be in the class. And so usually what I'll do is if you need to get on your phone, because at this point, it's literally you either sit there with a box at the door and go drop your phone in here, which is, to see a teenager being told that they need to put their phone in a box before class is like saying you're going to rip their teeth out. I mean, it's just. So I basically say, okay, but if I see you on the phone, you're out of the class. You can go sit in the corner. You're not going to be doing any scenes today.
No scenes today.
But if you need to get on, if you got to text your parents or something like that, just leave the class. Go outside into the hall, do whatever you need to do, and come back. Because I want them to want to be there. And if they're sitting there on their phone, they're just waiting for their time to be on stage. They're not really sitting there trying to learn. Because I don't know if you experience this, but for me, I learned more when I was in acting classes. I learned more from watching other people getting their critiques and doing their scenes than I did when I was up there.
I believe it.
Because when you're up there, especially if you're doing it right, it's almost like you don't know you're there, and at the end of the scene you go, I can't believe that thing just went by, which is really an incredible feeling,
right?
But also when you finish the scene and you start getting critique, you're so caught up in what you just did and thinking about that you're not really listening. No. And so I think that's really important. The other thing that I do a little bit different is that I do record all of your work. So in other words, I will have you come up, work on the scene. Once we get the scene to where we want it, then I'll explain to people how this scene would be shot and what to expect if you were doing this scene. So first of all, you're going to do
everything else, right? Then you're doing more than that. So you're also giving them
on-set instruction, so that they know, okay, so we're going to do a cover or an establishing shot of the scene. We're going to run the whole thing a bunch of times just so that we get it right. And then we're going to take the camera. We're going to have to reset all of the lights. So you're going to go back and sit in your trailer or on a milk crate sometimes, depending on what kind of budget you have for the production, and wait while they reset the lights, reset the cameras, get everything set up for an over-the-shoulder or a two-shot, so that they learn all of the information that they're gonna need, so that when they go on the set, they're not going, where do I look? What do I do? Should I look in the I mean, so many times people say, how do I, should I look in the camera? It's like, no. Do you ever see people in films looking in the camera unless they're talking to you? So, so it's all that kind of information. I film it, I put it in a Dropbox, and then that way you can go home, pull the files down and take a look at what you've done, and then maybe kind of put the pieces together in terms of the critique you got.
Do you think it's valuable to have an acting partner to work with you, or it's better just to work with those you have chosen for your students to work with?
You mean in the class? Yeah, what I usually do is I pair people up. Depending on where I think they are, and in terms of the scene, is it a man and a woman? Is it two women? That kind of stuff.
Maybe a woman.
And then sometimes I'll give them, if it's kind of a scene that it doesn't matter what gender is, I'll give them guy parts and stuff like that. The other thing that I think is really important is that I don't, until you get the system down, because it is a little bit of a different system than most people, and I can kind of go into that a little bit so that you know. But until you get that down, I don't give you the script before you come to class. So there's no homework, there's no rehearsing. You don't have to get together with your scene partner. We come in at the beginning of the class, I give you a script, we go through, we do all of the analysis, we start working on it. Once we get it up and running, then we film it. And I usually shoot anywhere from 3 to 4 scenes per class. So it's a really fast process, but you gotta have that fast process when you're on a film.
Yeah, you need it. Have to be moving. Yeah, you have a line change.
Yeah, you don't have eight weeks to
And how do you explain that to people too? That's a line change. No, I already read this and I memorized it this way. You're like, no, you have to change it.
Yeah, I had a kind of an interesting thing that just happened a few years ago, and something I did. They had given me the script. I read the script. I kind of got the scene down. I went in the first day. They gave me a revised script. I looked at that. Well, nothing's changed. I went in to do the rehearsal, started doing the rehearsal, and all of a sudden, this guy says a line that's after this big chunk of dialogue I was supposed to have, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't. So I just said the line, but it was obvious that it wasn't there. And the main actor goes, "You don't know your lines?" And I was like, "Well, that's not what I have right here on the script I got this morning." And the writer was standing in the door, and he goes, "Oh yeah, we changed that. Sorry, we didn't get that to you." So you never know what's going to happen. They could rewrite the whole scene.
And may I add something?
Yes.
That has nothing to do with this, and it's about your personality. I think what's going to make this the most perfect boutique acting class. And yes, it is a boutique acting class because it's not like everyone else has a place like this that you can give this one-on-one attention. You have a way of calming people down when they are...
A very calming influence.
Well, in acting you have to be because you're anxious. You have, at least with myself, I know how I feel. It's different than stand-up. And I think that I don't know how we're going to can it, but you got to can it. Whatever you do, that gives people the trust in you and makes them trust themselves. That's how I wanted to say. What I think is beautiful is that you, as the gentleman was saying, most people are looking for trust.
Right.
Then you find that, but you trust them. If you trust them, you trust yourself.
Right.
And I think that you can motivate more so than most because there's a way of teaching and there's a way of being condescending, and that just doesn't work.
Well, I think that, I think for me, one of the biggest things is I just love this. I love it. And I always have. When I was in college, I had the instructors. I had the most incredible experience at the college I was at. And 2 years in, my two teachers who directed me in a bunch of stuff, and we'd done shows, they came to me and they said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I just want to be in this business. I don't care. I want to be an actor. I want to be a director. I want to be a producer. I want to be a filmmaker." And they said, "Well, then don't go to this college.
Really?
Drop out, go to a big city and take private acting classes and start working, start getting out there." And that's what I did. And the thing is that, now it's 40 years. Whew. 40 years later, I've done all the things that I wanted to do. I've acted, I've directed, I've produced, filmmaker. I've started to write a lot more recently.
And when you write, what is your way of doing it? Do you just have a book that you go back to, or do you write your ideas and make your compilation later?
Yeah, I usually try to just get a structure, write it down, put it on the wall so I know where I'm going, and then just start writing. And then once I've written it, then I can take stuff and move it around and change things like that.
And AI has nothing to do with this.
No, AI doesn't. No.
And that's the one thing I do want to add to everyone that's watching is that as easy as it is to deal with AI, and it makes it so much easier. Here, let me show you this, let me show you that. Aeron has ideas that you cannot get with AI because it's an experience.
Right. And it's an interactive experience that when you've got somebody in the room who can really encourage you, because one of the biggest things that I see a lot is in acting classes is that this is the way you need to do it. This is, this line is this way. And it's not that simple because everybody's an individual.
Right.
Every person brings a completely different thing to every single part that is available. And so the more you leave it to people to use their own imagination to create all of the a lot of times actors have a backstory is given a bad rap. Oh, I don't do any kind of backstory. Well, having some kind of life behind the character is really
something
important.
Great. Right. Something
no matter how you get that, it doesn't really matter how you get it. But to be able to say, it could be this way, it could be that way, it could be this way, it could be that way. Whatever comes to you is what's correct, and you're gonna be able to move through that.
Well, how do you move through it when you have someone? Let me just have an example for you that was given to me. I was told that I needed to take a hosting boot camp. I'm a great host. Why do I have to take a hosting boot camp?
Right.
Marky Costello's teaching, and she says, Sunda, what's going to happen when you have someone that's not funny? I said, well, I'll take over that part, of course. Now, they put me in with somebody who was not funny. It was not funny at all. And he couldn't even hold me if I fell asleep on him. You know what I mean? And I doze off all the time. But I'm just saying this to say I thought I had this, and it can bring you down.
Right.
Now, what's your advice for that when you have that person that's not working with you? And you know what I mean when you're working as an actor.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that the encouragement, it's like you have to encourage people through any kind of blocks they have. I can kind of go a little bit into one of the aspects that is a little bit different, I think, and there may be somebody else out there who does this, but one of the things I tell people is don't memorize, because the way we learn to get what we want is to react to the situation any way that we possibly can. Once we start learning words, we can then specifically ask for those things.
Right.
But when we learn to read, how do you learn to read? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, put these letters together, they make a word, and then there's a period and a comma.
A lot.
And what happens is a lot of times people, and I've always asked this of people, when you've read something out loud to a group of people, and you close the book and you don't really remember what you read as well as if you had read it for yourself. That's the same with memorization. You're stuffing a bunch of words in your head and trying to get it so that it's so rote that you can say it, and then you can start working on the character. I think that that's kind of backwards. I think that the more you look at each line and say, okay, what do I know has happened?
Right, that's a good way. And who has been a part of what's happened.
Right, because if you know everything that makes you say what you're saying, and the thing is using your imagination, it's lightning fast. Your memory is so slow. It's like, and it's really not fun. I don't know if anybody likes to memorize stuff, but it is really not fun to do that. But it is really fun to look at a line like, what if it's not a number? What do I know? Well, there's a number, and we don't know, and we've been trying to figure out what that number is, but we don't know what it is. And I've just figured out that maybe it's not a phone number. Oh, that's what the line was. Maybe it's not. It's not a phone number. So that means that you've got several choices, and suddenly you get this idea. Well, if that happened, I don't have to memorize how to say that. I know how to say that. I know how to say, what if it's not a number?
Right.
And then it comes from an experience that I'm looking at something. We've been, poring over this forever, and I'm obviously working with somebody, and now I'm going to ask them, what if it's not a phone number? It's pretty simple. And a lot of times with really simple lines, I'll say, I know this is a simple line, but it works for everything you do. If you can start training your brain to read a script as if it were a book that you were reading for yourself. First, read the line like, okay, what does it mean? Not what are the words. And the thing is, a lot of times I'll see people looking at a script, and it's obvious to me that that's what they're doing, is they're trying to stuff those words in, because it takes twice as long to look at something that you're going to have to say if you're trying to memorize it as it does to read it if you're reading a book. You just read the line, you read the words, and your imagination kicks in.
Boom.
Yeah, right.
Elmo would say, imagination.
Yeah, exactly. No, the way I've kind of broken it down for myself and for my students is there's logic, and then the middle one is empathy, compassion, understanding, because you have to understand your character. Nobody walks around going, I'm a jerk, I'm an asshole. They might say, I was just an asshole to that person, but nobody thinks that they're just totally all the time, right?
I wish they would come out with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to understand the character. Why are they doing that? Everybody has a motivation for doing what they're doing, and you have to figure out what that is. And a lot of times those motivations are not real pleasant. But you start to get used to emotions that happen to us from our thoughts, and they're not painful, and because you felt them, you know them, they're comfortable, even though they might be painful.
And if
they might
painful,
make you
you're
cry.
able to make it comfortable.
Exactly.
So that's another tool that you'll be bringing out to help.
Right. And then
These
the
are
last
tools that
one,
people need.
yeah, and then the last one is imagination. You use your imagination to create the scenario. You're going to have to sometimes be standing in front of a big green wall And they're going to say, you're actually looking over the plains of Arizona, and you can't just look at a green wall. You've got to really see that beautiful open space that's out there,
You're so fun. I love the way you do it. You like sell it. You can sell a jet.
I'm selling it. Yeah.
Selling it.
Exactly.
I've been up for 24 hours. I'm like trying to stay awake. At the same time, I'm like, I like this memorization thing because I have to remember stuff. It's really hard at a certain point also. And I'm glad that you want people to feel it and to act it. The memorization makes them, it's what you said was best at reacting.
Right. Well, you don't, nobody tries to feel. Right? You might want to feel good if you're feeling bad, but nobody has to think about feelings. In other words, if you get a check for $1,000 in the mail, you don't go, oh, what's the correct emotion for this? Oh, I'm excited, and then act excited, right?
Yes.
You see it, you have a thought about it, and it makes you feel, and that's what you've got to turn the script into.
That's great.
You have to turn it into a thing to where the text and the situation and what's happened before makes you say the things you're saying,
right.
And your thoughts about what you're saying or what's going on in the scene or what's happened before makes you feel a certain way, and it becomes a lot easier to be able to let that go. In other words, it's not pretending that you're feeling that way. It's really feeling it. And that's what really compelling acting is, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of people who are really good at very technical acting, where they do kind of, act like they're experiencing something. That's one of the things that comes up in a lot of classes. Well, there's the magic if. What would you do if you were in this situation? And I say, take if out. Just say, this is happening to me.
Right, it's it.
And this happened to me before. And I can imagine that stuff happening. And from that, imagining that thing that has happened, I can kind of get a sense of what would my thoughts be.
That's interesting, and not everybody has the same thoughts. Can you imagine?
Exactly. Well, and that's why different people get the part, right?
That's true.
Two people can do a scene completely different, and it comes down to, the specific choices that the director and the producers and the writers and all of those people are making.
And specificity in acting is so important.
Yeah.
You can't always be ambiguous with that. And I'm certainly not one to talk about it because I'm a comic. I was a serious actress. I was telling people all the time, I'm a serious actress. I was really insulted. They thought I was a comedian. And as it turns out, this is what I'm doing. And just to bring, of course we're both. We're everything when you're a comedian.
Right.
And I'm so glad to have this opportunity to, be able to just sit down and talk to you about it. As tired as I am, and I know that I was losing you for a minute.
I know.
I was falling asleep for a second.
I was going to kick your foot. I was going to kick your foot.
No. I follow it, though. Did you notice how I come back?
Yeah. You're always here.
I am always there.
You're always there.
If I'm falling asleep, I'm sorry, but I'm going to always be there. And before I came, my daughter said to me, please take a nap, because I just saw you on FaceTime. And I was like, could you keep waking me up, too? And how does that work, keeping people engaged? What are you going to say about that?
Well, like I said, I think that the keeping people engaged, the more one of the things I try to do is I try to get also people from the other members of the class.
Right.
I don't want, it's kind of like, actors cannot tell other actors, could you give me a little more there? There's nothing an actor hates more than another actor coming up and giving them advice, right? So I don't really want the actors to, the other actors in the class to give the person advice on how to do it, because I don't believe there is a how. We don't think, how am I going to react? How am I going to say this? Unless we're like trying to form the words, like we've got this really difficult thing that we have to try to get. And so we're going, okay, what would be the best way to say this to get what I want, right? That's about the only other time. I'm not thinking, what am I going to say right now? I'm speaking from experience. Everybody does that. They know what they want. Yeah, and it comes out. And so, I might ask them, what other kinds of ideas can you think of just in terms of what could have happened to this character that would make them do what they do? Because a lot of times I've been in experiences where you do one thing, what you bring in, which is another really big pet peeve of mine, is when an actor comes in and goes, how should I do this? Or why am I? It's like, that's your job. That's your job to figure out why you're doing it. Your job is to figure out all of that stuff, bring in what you can, and then the most important thing is to be flexible. So when they say, I don't like what you did there, I want you to do something else,
right, that
you can translate that into your own language so that you're not just saying it the way they want you to say it. You can figure out.
That's talking shop, too.
Yeah.
That's talking shop in
right.
a lot of ways.
Right.
That's what I say even about comedy. You're talking, you have to remember when we say things like, oh, God, give them the light, or we say things under our breath, that's shop talk. Nobody knows what you're talking about.
Right. You
gotta flash them. What does he mean? Take off your clothes.
Yeah.
Johnny B, are you flashing?
No.
Well, if there's any other questions I have forgotten to ask, I'm going to throw it over to Tim, our producer, because there's something I neglected to cut on.
Talk about the show. Talk about the December 8th class.
Oh, that. Tim's over there like...
Tim is so serious.
Oh, man.
Okay. He's right. You're right. That's why I have you. All right. So,
with all that in mind... we have a...
so tell me what to expect on December 8th when I come here for the open house from the Film Actors Cafe.
Okay. Well, the first thing that I'll want to do is I want to find out where everybody's at in their career. In other words, how many people have been studying and working for 10 years? How many people at 5 years? How many at 2? How many at 1? So that I get a sense of the people that are in here. Then I'll kind of give an overview, just kind of like what I just did here, but a little bit more specific with a few more other things thrown in. Yeah. And then we'll start working. I've got more scripts than you can imagine. And we will have scripts in class, and I'll just start pairing people up. They'll come up on the stage.
What do we walk away with? Do we have something to walk away with?
They're going to walk away with a video. They're going to walk away with a video of their performance, whatever they do.
Great. So basically, it's December 8th. It's 4:30 in the afternoon for the young adults.
Right.
And when they'll be finished by 7, that's when the adults come in. That's us.
Right.
And we're going to all get a piece of action of our footage.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody will get that.
That's very important, and I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
And with all the wealth of talent that you have to offer, I don't see where this is just going to stop here. I can see you going so many more places.
I hope so.
It's very soon.
Like I said, it's taken me a lot of years of doing a lot of different things. I ran a public access television station for 20 years. And all the time acting and teaching at the same time. So, but all of these things have kind of built up, and I, about 10 years ago, kind of took stock. And teaching is the thing that I love the most. I enjoy coming to class. I get excited to come to class. Every once in a while, it's an overnight shoot. I'm like, I love to act, but God, I don't want to stay up from 8 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. But I love it. I don't want to give anybody the
right. He loves it. We all love it. We love it. We want to work right now. Call us.
Right. But the acting, teaching acting, and I have to say also, teaching acting to young adults is really exciting to me because they're not so entrenched in their own belief about what acting is, and they're a lot more, open to new ideas, and they haven't shut down their imagination. A lot of times people are like, oh, that's not a good idea, or that's stupid. There's no stupid things. You just keep and
working. Tell them this too. There's no stupid question.
No stupid questions. No stupid questions, and no stupid answers. If I ask you a question, a lot of times people will go, I don't know, because they're afraid of giving me the wrong answer. And I keep telling them, there is no wrong answer. It's whatever you come up with. And maybe it won't work for the director. Maybe it doesn't really fully, work in with the scene. But we can work on that. We can kind of take that thing that you've created that has brought you to this point and maybe tweak it a little bit. so that you're not just doing the lines over and over again. I can't tell you the number of actors I've worked with where you cast them in something because of the performance they gave in the audition, and by the time you shoot, they've come up with all these new things, and it's not what you want, and you try to get them to change, and they can't. They'll tell you they can. You say, can you do that one little part like this? And they'll go, oh, yeah, sure. And then they'll do exactly what they did before.
Exactly what they want to. It's so frustrating.
And you can't get them out of it. And that's why, to me, yes, you got to be a good actor. But really, most important is that you got to be a flexible actor. You've got to be an actor who can come in and they can go, no, I want you to be more angry. And instead of just yelling louder or, furrowing your brow more, you go, okay, well, what would make it so that I really was more angry at this person? And then, poop, those ideas come in your mind and you just go in and get what you want, because that's all we do. We never do anything
that's a man's
unless we want to get something.
There was another question? Or we're good? Is there any other questions? Or something I missed? I haven't missed anything. And guys, let me tell you something. I partied like a rock star and still got up this morning. Oh my God.
I can see that.
I don't even look like myself. I look like Trump.
No, you look fine.
I have my roots colored because my hair that's going. I even know I'm getting into this. This is an acting gig, but I have to tell you something. When you're trying to make people act, it's so hard. I don't know how you have the patience. Not make them act, but make them listen, follow direction, make them listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about you. You have the ability to take it back a notch and.
Well, and if it's more that you're asking questions rather than making statements. I mean, I've always found that to work in every situation. If you've got any kind of confrontational, I've used this on drunk people at the bar. It works great. If they start acting up, if you just start asking them questions, after a while they just get worn out, and they go, I don't know why I'm doing that or whatever. So the more you can get them to come up with the answers rather than you telling them what the answer is.
And I hate when that's important. They want to be told the answer. That's the other thing I don't like.
Right. Yeah.
What's the easy way out of that? Not an easy way, but that's what they want. They want, just tell me how. How would you read it?
Right. Exactly.
Aaron, how would you read that line?
And I tell them, I'm not going to tell you.
You don't.
I'm not going to tell
that,
you.
But you know what I mean. Oh.
Yeah. I say it in a nicer way.
In a nicer way.
I say, well, it's really more important
for you.
This is your ideas. This is your imagination. And if you keep second guessing yourself and saying, no, that's not right, then you're going to shut everything down. But, you can sit here and, if you let your imagination go, you can say, I saw this guy riding down the street on a red bike and he pulled over into traffic and this Volvo came around and almost hit him but swerved and then went up on the island and hit a tree. I mean, you can come up with something that quickly if you let yourself. But a lot of times people will go, oh, what should I talk about? What should I be thinking? And it just shuts everything down. So that's the idea.
That's it. That's great. Well, I hope that I've answered or asked the right questions, even in my sleep. And I'm kidding about that. I will share a story with you, an acting story. I was on a show called Second Verdict, and it was on Channel 11 when that meant something, regular networks. And it was this is acting, I guess you could say, but it was the first true crime television show. And it took court cases with a new jury and tried them a second time, giving them a second verdict. We'd have no impact on anything, but it shows you how people are so different everywhere in part of the world. They have me in a scene. Are you ready? I'm like this. I just fell asleep on national television, but not just like, not like one of these. I went.
Yeah, just flopped
and out of the camera. And my mother had found out she had cancer, and she was showing all her cancer friends, my daughter's going to be on television, and don't make fun about me, she says. I'm like, Ma, this is a different kind of show. And my mother said, did you fall asleep? She said, because you were there, and then you weren't. I was just that happens. You get tired. You have to let people know. Listen, I've worked so hard. Tim and I used to work so hard on scripts and screenplays and things like that. And I got to tell you, I'll fight it to the end. I will work through my sleep. And when you try to read those hieroglyphics the next day, you're like, what did I write?
Yeah.
What did I write? Here's what you write. Put this in your calendar. December 8th, you know who you are, whether you fit in for the 4:30 or the 7 o'clock group. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call the LA School of Comedy also at 310-470-1939. Or unless you want to call his number, which you don't want to be given out.
No, I do. 877. It's an 877 number. Yeah, special. 877-663-4561. And that is 877 on film 1. Ah, nice, huh?
Fancy.
And you can also find us on our website, filmactorscafe.com. So that's filmactorscafe.com. And that's also on social media, Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff.
And you promised for my birthday you're going to grow the handlebar mustache for me.
Yeah, well, maybe the mutton chops. I was thinking maybe the mutton chops. I always like those.
Well, you can find me on Sunda Live on all platforms, and now we know where to find the Film Actors Cafe. And I thank you for your time in doing this, because I think that this is great. Let people get a feel of who you are. You know, they already know I'm out of my mind.
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Really excited.
And we're all excited. Johnny B's excited. Tim's excited.
Yeah.
DeAndre, we're excited.
We're all excited.
This talk show's on the go, and we're out. Thank you.
Good job, you guys.
Thank you.
So now do we just like make it look like we're still having a conversation? He's over there. That look on your face, Tim, was beautiful.
Beautiful.
You were like, what the fuck is wrong with you two?
So what? You didn't give me direction, Tim. What should I have done? You just want to get straight to it, right? The commercial?
Went perfect, though, Tim.
That was good. I think, you know,
The truth, Tim. This
information was missed. A little information was missed about December 8th. If I'm watching this, I want to know more about the class December 8th, the times, the location, what I'm going to be learning, the teacher, a little bit like that, you know?
Right.
It was a little bit
All over the place.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think it went over places that we hadn't even thought about touching on.
That's okay.
I want to hear you take.
I agree. I will say though that I feel like this podcast I said that trust is one of those things that people care about. I think it did add a level of trust, because when